Hi guys, welcome to this channel. Why this had to happen when? This war of 1962 had to happen in 1962 between India and China. Why it had to happen in the month of October, and why it had to last between October 24th and November 16th. Let's dig in, guys. The main three actors of this war was, of course, China, who was the aggressor. There was India, who was aggressed on, and third is in the United States of America. We'll look at how each of these actors played a major role in this particular war and why. 1962. The year 1962 is very important for China because it was the year that the Great Famine, which started in 1958, had ended. So this, by the mid 1950s, the Great Leap Forward was in full swing, and the great leader Mao Zedong was overseeing that Great Leap Forward. However, some missteps led to a famine which started in 1958, and by the time it was 1962, around 40 million people had died. Mao Zedong, sitting in Beijing, must have been thinking, what is the best way to distract the emotions of this famine-ravaged country on some external factor, and there you go. India was the perfect target, and Mao Zedong did give his military commanders the green light to go and attack India in 1962 when the famine was at its peak. Wonderful. The next reason why 1962 was important is the budget cut in defense that had to happen in India in 1959. 1959, around 25 crores Indian rupees was deducted from the Indian defense budget, which was roughly 10% of its total allocation. Who else would be more joyful about hearing this news than China and Pakistan, who were neighbors? And they did take it as a green light, as a confidence building measure for them to go and attack this country by 1962, when the effect of this defense budget cut would be felt on the ground level. The third factor why 1962 is important is there was a congressional election that was supposed to happen in the United States, and usually in any lead up to any particular election, they use some substantial nationalistic narratives that actually play up in the host countries, which happens to be the United States, and that did happen in October. That particular event was the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was played by the John F. Kennedy, and that had to happen in October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, now let's look at the month of October. Why it was October 1962 that this war had to happen. The Great Himalayan Ranges run between India and China, and these Himalayan ranges, they freeze during the winter months. The winter months usually last from November to around March, April, and logistics and moving armies from one side to the other becomes almost impossible during those months. The Chinese knew it very well, and hence it was almost October last week, which was the third week of October, when the Chinese finally sent their troops across the line of control before the snow started falling. And of course, by the time it was November 16th, they realized that let's get our troops back across the line, back to our side, because the snow is going to fall and winter is going to set in. So they just hit the sweet spot between October and November to launch their operations and call back the troops by the time the winter would set in. So that's October. The other one is the elections in United States was supposed to happen in November 6th, and October, John F. Kennedy was running out of ideas, most probably, of how to build a narrative around nationalistic feelings and relationships. So of course, John F. Kennedy knew a lot about Russian ships carrying missiles from Soviet Union to Cuba, it was in October that he decided that enough is enough. Let's start a naval blockade around Cuba so that these Russian ships cannot get through, and start a tension with the Soviet Union. That tension was started around October 8th and became hot from October 16th onwards. That tension in Cuba, which grew hot around October 16th, gave the Chinese generals the perfect excuse and the perfect distraction to send their troops across the international border into India on October 24th, exactly 1 week after the Cuban Missile Crisis started heating up. While the Cuban Missile Crisis lasted hot from October 16th to October 28th, 29th, the Chinese were already in operation. They had the surprise factor, and they had sent their troops, and the troops were already in Arunachal Pradesh. So, geopolitical event of the Cuban Missile Crisis, while the US, USSR, UK, and the great powers were riveted on that particular crisis, the Chinese took the opportunity to send their troops across the border and do the damage. Business lessons. What are the business lessons that we can learn from this Indo-China war? Is the first lesson: whenever there is a distressing situation happening elsewhere in the world where the great powers are locked in, we can escalate some minor wars in our neighborhood, which can go unnoticed. And that's what China-India war reflects on international relations, which was the Cuban Missile Crisis was growing hot, while India and China was fighting a war, which was kind of minor in terms of international and in the same time and date. The second thing is a great famine in China. Whenever there is some great crisis happening within a particular country, the best way to distract the population is to start a bigger crisis, like a war or something against a neighbor. This can actually this can divide the public opinion and also save the political reputation. Okay. The third thing is that whenever there's a cut in defense spending, it's better be kept a secret if you can. If it gets publicized, or if it goes, it can become news. It can become good news for many of the hostile neighbors. So be careful of what you are leaking out to the press. In case you can, try to keep the secret. Well, that's all from my side for this week. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe this channel, and have a nice one. Bye.